We're in the middle of a series about building a guitar. I built one myself, and one of the things you have to do if you're going to build a guitar is get the parts to make the guitar. Where do you do that? This week on Learning Curve, we're going to go shopping. First of all, if you're in the "this sounds fun" phase of building a guitar, there's one thing you need to keep in mind, and I'm not sure where your head's at about this, but building a guitar is not cheaper, okay? Unless you're building, you know, like a real Billy Bow would cost me $2,000. Now granted, this is cheaper, but by and large, if you're just trying to save money, building a guitar is not the way to do it. The best way to do that is to buy a good mod platform and then swap out the components you want to swap out. That'll save you time, that'll save you money. So if you're thinking, I can build it cheaper, turn back, you've come to the wrong place, this isn't for you. However, if you are thinking, I would like a guitar that I built with my own hands, I want to be involved in the whole process, I want to get a better understanding of how guitars work, then you, good sir or madam, should proceed. If you get nothing else from this video, please take this as the take home. If you are planning on building a guitar from scratch, the first thing you need to do before you start adding stuff to your Amazon cart is measure, and then remeasure, and then measure again. Okay, there are no universal sizes when it comes to guitars. You have to take everything into account. Tuning pegs come in different sizes. Pots, the potometers, the shafts on those. There's a US version and there's an Asian version, and depending upon what you're working with, those they might just not fit on your guitar at all if you get the wrong ones, especially if you're working on something like a Telecaster that has a metal control plate where it's harder to bore out the size of the holes. So measure all that stuff. Pick guards. It seems like a Strat pick guard should fit on a Strat, but anybody who's done it will tell you there's a million different sizes of Strat pick guards, and you need to know what you're getting into. Look, if you measure, you're going to spend a lot less time returning things, okay? I tell you, whatever your vision is, there's a version of it out there that looks the way you want it to look, has the right, you know, measurements and specifications, but is completely the wrong size and will not work on your project at all, no matter how perfect it seems. So just take the time, read the specs, get the measurements, you'll be happy you did. Look, if you spent any time with guitars, I probably don't need to tell you where to buy stuff, but on the off chance you are brand new, here's a brief list of places where you can find parts, and I'm sure there are a million more out there that also do a wonderful job. Well, the first place you should start is your local guitar store. A lot of them have parts hanging up on the wall. Sometimes there's a little rack full of pots and knobs and bridges and nuts and all kinds of stuff. So maybe throw the local business a little bit of help. If you go there, you can't find what you're looking for, next stop, check out Amazon. A lot of people filter their stuff through Amazon, and a lot of sellers have really good return policies, but check the return policy. And rule of thumb for everything, always make sure and check the shipping on these things, because I have seen, like, it's a $20 whatnot and shipping's only $150, and it's already, you've already pressed, you know, you've already finished the deal, and now you've got to spend $120 on shipping. So be mindful of that. And again, also be mindful of return policy. Amazon return policies vary from seller to seller. StewMac, they're expensive, but they make good stuff, and they are great for most of your guitar part needs and your guitar tool needs. You can find cheaper versions other places, but sometimes the cheaper versions just aren't as good a quality. So if you got the cash and you know what you're looking for, check out StewMac. GuitarFetish, they make a cheaper version of just about everything in the world that has to do with guitars, and some of their stuff is awesome. I have not had a problem with anything I've ever bought from GuitarFetish, and their return policy is also really top notch. So, can't say enough good things. eBay, oh my God, there is an everything on eBay. There's the guitar neck you're looking for, there's the pickups you're looking for, there's the pedal you're looking for. Really be careful about the shipping costs on eBay. Really take the time to check out the return policy on eBay. Really take the time to check the measurements on eBay, and know that sometimes with used stuff you're getting used stuff, and it's gonna seem like it. But definitely check on eBay, because you can also save a fortune on some pickups that maybe aren't as shiny as they would be right out of the box, but they're also $100 cheaper. So there you go. Reverb, very much like eBay, full of guitar stuff. Whatever you're looking for, check there. You might be able to find it used a lot cheaper. Once again, always check the shipping cost. Always check the return policy so you don't get burnt. All parts, kind of like StewMac. Check it. I don't have a strong opinion on All Parts, but I've found stuff there that was good, and then I paid for it, and then I got it, and then it worked. So, you know, if you want a price comparison against StewMac, that might be a good place to start. Warmouth, if you got some money, you're looking for a neck that's gonna cost some money, it's not a bad place to start. But there are a million places to buy necks on the internet, by the way. Mighty Mite, Warmouth, geez, those are just two. Google guitar neck, you'll see. Read the reviews, keep your budget in mind, find what you're looking for. Here's a good start. Enjoy your adventure. There is a lot of information about pickups floating around the internet, and there are about a bajillion kinds of pickups to choose from. Billy Bows generally use filter-on pickups, so I decided to go with GuitarFetish filter-on pickups because they're very well reviewed and I could afford them. GuitarFetish also offers a wide range of styles for whatever you're looking for. There was a whole bunch of different flavors and variations of filter-ons. Now this gets back to measuring too. Before you order pickups, look at the dimensions of the pickups, okay? And then look at your guitar body. See how the pockets in my guitar body don't appear to be perfectly straight? That's because they're not. And see how you're not measuring the size, but and I don't have a picture of the original size, but those are routed for a pickup that doesn't seem to exist. I initially thought they were mini humbuckers, but I measured them and mini humbuckers don't fit in that pocket either. So I decided to go with the filter-ons because that's what goes in a Billy Bow, and I decided to just make the hole bigger, and we'll get to that adventure in another video. But trust me, holy crap. I went with an overwound hot Nashville in the bridge and an overwound hot Liverpool in the neck. GuitarFetish gives you samples of all their pickups that you can listen to. And the reason I chose these was shot in the dark. They seemed like they would work well together, and I liked the range they seem to be offering. By the way, if you're looking at pickups and the website you're buying them from doesn't offer a sound sample, Google those pickups, because odds are somebody on the internet has put out a video of them playing through those pickups. Now, having said that, I also don't think you're really going to know how they sound until you plug them in, bottom line. I mean, you can get an idea, but it's got to go through your guitar, your pedals, your rig, and by the end of the day, it's going to sound the way it sounds. So I'm still at the point where I feel like, you know, you trust reviews, you do your homework, but there's a little bit of shot in the dark involved here. Oh, one last thing about GuitarFetish filter-ons. They are humbucker sized, right? If you buy TV Jones filter-ons, that's a whole different routing. But GuitarFetish filter-ons will fit into a humbucker sized route, so you don't have to change anything if your guitar is routed for a humbucker, which mine was not. Again, we'll get to that in another video. Now we're going to talk about wiring. To figure out what your wiring is, find a schematic of the guitar you're trying to emulate and go with that. Now, the one way you can go is to just buy a pre-wired wiring harness online, and a bunch of those places that I mentioned earlier sell them. So if you want to do a Les Paul wiring, look for a Les Paul wiring harness. I needed Gretsch wiring. I could very easily do a Gretsch wiring harness, and the Gretsch harness is exactly the same as the wiring harness for the Wildcat that I did earlier. Okay, I put a wiring harness into my Wildcat, and that's what made me think that maybe I could just do it myself. But if you don't want to do all of that work, wiring harness is the route. Now, if you do want to do all that work, good for you. First thing you're going to need is a schematic, and there's a lot of places you can go to get schematics. TV Jones has a lot of schematics. They're really easy to read. They're great. Seymour Duncan has a vast library of schematics with just about every modification that you want, with any pickup combination you want, with any switching combination you want. They are the Library of Congress of wiring schematics. I can't say enough good things about them. Fender does have a schematics page if you're interested in it, but I gotta say, love Fender. The schematics are a little tough to read. They don't color code them. They're a little flat, and I just think the Seymour Duncan page really pops. Same with Gibson. Gibson also offers schematics and all the wiring information, but I don't think it's as user-friendly as Seymour Duncan. My own personal opinion. Nothing against Gibson. I'm going to give you a basic idea of some of the stuff you need for wiring. I'm going to give you the basics. You know, your specifics might be a little different, but this should at least give you a foundation to start from. The first thing is a pre-tinned guitar wire, and I'm going to hold that up. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully it'll come into focus. Come on. What's great about this stuff is it's already tinned, which means there's solder on it. And as you can see, if you push back that wire, it exposes the end there. And then you can push it back and kind of re-insulate it. Very useful, very easy to use. Color coded, so you can keep track of what's what if you're consistent and you're paying attention. I like this stuff. That's in my humble opinion. You're gonna need some cloth coated pre-tinned wire. You're gonna need pots. You're gonna need to get pots. When you buy your pickups, the page frequently will recommend which pots to use with that pickup. If this is your first guitar, you might just want to listen to them. If you're really good at wiring, then you do you, man. But as a rule of thumb, humbuckers go 500K, single coils go 250K, and then there's a million variations and a million things you can do other than that. As I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to take the shaft size into account. This has burned me a couple times. Asian pots and American and European pots have a different shaft radius, okay? And if you can bore a bigger hole in your pickguard, it's not an issue if you don't mind doing that. But if you don't want to do that, or if you've got something like a Telecaster where it's metal and you don't want to enlarge a metal hole, maybe just get the right shaft size the first time. And also there's long shaft and short shaft, and sometimes that doesn't matter if you have a deep cavity. But if you have a shallow cavity and you can't fit a long shaft in it, you know, again, just make sure you're getting the right stuff. Measure. Measure, measure, measure. You're gonna need to get a switch. That's what tells the guitar which pickup to use. Tele switches are different than Strat switches, are different than Gibson switches. That is a tongue twister. I urge you to try it if you have to do some public speaking. It's pretty simple, man. Just do your homework, do the reading, buy the kind that you're looking for. But don't assume that all switches are the same. If this is the first time you've ever thought about it, all I'm saying is they're not all the same. It's pretty self-explanatory, but don't just buy guitar switch, okay? Because there's different kinds of guitar switches. You probably knew that, but maybe you didn't and you were too ashamed to ask. Well, now you know. You're gonna need resistors, you're gonna need capacitors. Again, go to your schematic. It will tell you what kind of resistors you wanna buy, what kind of capacitors you wanna buy. Then you can go into the nuances of different capacitors. Do your homework on that. Buy the kind you like, buy the kind that sound the best. I'm not positive expensive capacitors are better than cheap capacitors, but I'm also not sure they're not. So do what works for you, spend the money that you can afford to spend, and try to find the thing that works. But again, it's on your schematic. There's a little thing, it will tell you, find that number, and then order that number. Also, they're pretty cheap, so don't sweat it. Shrink tubing, holy crap, who knew? Shrink tubing is super useful and super inexpensive, and I use it so much more than I thought. It is great for insulating things. It's great for covering up things like capacitors that are in, lined cavities that have a metallic thing on it, and you don't want the stuff with the stuff. With the Billy Bow, which again, when we get to the pickup episode, oh holy buckets, so many things that had to be figured out. But the routing for the wires was too small to fit all the wires, so I widened the hole to the best of my ability, but then I wrapped all the wires in this shrink coating and shrank it up, and then it was easier to shove a bundle of loose wires through because they were solid now and they were all locked in place. This stuff's amazing. You'll love it. Solder. You need a specific kind of solder. If you've never done this and you have a bunch of, you're like, I do soldering all the time, you ain't got nothing to tell me. Well, you're going to need solder, and you're going to need a 60-40 rosin core solder specifically. That is the guitar kind of solder. There's a reason for that. I should know the reason for that. You want 60-40 rosin core solder. That's the kind you use. You're going to want to buy hardware. You're going to need it. It's part of the deal. And again, measure, 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 measure. Tuning pegs are not all the same size. The holes in your headstock are not all the same size. I've never had a problem. Usually a lot of tuning pegs come with a little sheath thing that they put over it so it'll adjust to fit your size, but take a gander. Make sure you're getting the right stuff, otherwise you're going to have tuning pegs that don't fit. Obviously, again, simple stuff, but if you've never done it before, you maybe never thought about the fact that all tuning pegs aren't the same. You know, there's the 6 in a row, there's 3 and 3s. Make sure you're getting the right ones. It matters. It's easy, it's obvious, but if you hadn't thought about it before, you might just click on tuning peg, and then you get to click on return. And that's fun. You're gonna need to get a bridge. Once again, what kind of guitar are you building will dictate what kind of bridge you're gonna put on it. Strat bridges don't fit on Tellys. Gibson bridges don't fit on Strats. This guitar traditionally has what's called a floating bridge. The trouble with a floating bridge is it floats, and I feel like I would knock it around a lot, and it would end up not staying, like screwing with my intonation and just being a huge pain in the butt. So I decided to go with a more traditional tunematic bridge and keep the trapeze tailpiece, which is something I'm going to be updating soon, because the trapeze tailpiece, as much as I try to finesse it and try to finagle it, it breaks strings like crazy, and I don't seem to be able to make it not do that. Also, I want to start taking it out, and I feel like the trapeze is just another thing that can get damaged if I put it in a case and start, taking it around to places. So another thing about bridges, by the way, this is a good time to really take advantage of the fact that you're building the guitar, right? You can buy the cheapest bridge they make, or you can spend a couple of bucks more and get like a nice roller bridge, which is what I've done on 2 of my guitars, and it helps with intonation immensely. Look into it. There's a version of whatever you're doing that might have a couple of advantages that you didn't think about. If you're doing a telly, get a compensated bridge. It's not going to cost that much more, but it's going to help your intonation a great deal. You can do high-end upgrades at a good price at this stage of the game. So why not? You're going to need to buy knobs. Buckle up, because there are so many knobs and they're so cool. What I recommend you do, take a week off of work, get some snacks, seal up your man cave, your office, your lady, your she shed, wherever you go to be alone. Tell the kids that dad or mom is unavailable. let your spouse know that you're safe, and then dive deep. There are so many kinds of awesome knobs available to you. As always, make sure you measure. Now with the Billy Bow, I initially wanted to do something really over the top, so I went with these large gold stereo knobs that looked cool. They're a bit much all the way around, and they turn weird. The radius is really big, so when you turn them, it's just a little hinky. So I decided to just leave the one for the master volume and then go with an amp knob, like Muddy Waters did on his tellies, and put them on the rest of the knobs that you use more frequently, and I'm super happy with it. The same thing is true, by the way, with rings. There are a couple of kinds of rings. You're going to want to look at what kind of pickup ring you need, but then also take a deep dive, because there is just some crazy stuff out there, and you know, from subtle to over the top, it's a great opportunity for you to reflect your personality in your guitar that you're building with your hands. So have fun. Much like knobs and pickup rings, holy crap, there is an amazing universe of pick guards, but as is the theme of this video, measure, 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 measure. Just because it says it's a Strat pickguard doesn't mean it's going to automatically fit on your Strat, especially if you have an off-brand Strat. Now, sometimes it will, but Squires and Fenders aren't always the same, you know? They should be, but they're not. I put an off-brand HSS pickguard on my Squire, and I had to file a lot of stuff, and I had to drill holes, and it just wasn't okay. And then I bought a Harley Benton, which I love, and you cannot buy a pickguard that fits it. I tried, and it wasn't even an option. So what I ended up doing, which you can do, which is what I also did on the Billy Bow, is buy a blank piece of pickguard plastic. And if you have the tools and the know-how, you can cut whatever pickguard you want. Now for the Billy Bow, it was pretty easy because it's just a little square. There's not a lot of curves in it. If you look close, it's not perfect. Gosh darn it, I like it. It works. I'm perfectly happy with it. Now for the telly, not as much. I got a really ugly pickguard that I made, and what ended up happening was I ended up having to call somebody with better tools and better know-how. That somebody is my father. And you can call don't call my father, but if you have the friend or the dad or the granddad that's got the tools and the know-how, that might be your route. Necks, holy crap. Necks is a big topic, and this is just a brief overview. You may or may not know this. Telly necks are not the same as Strat necks, are not the same as when they make bolt-on Gibson necks. The Strats and the Tellys, Strats are rounded, Tellys are squared. It matters if you want it to fit in the pocket. The bigger issue I had was that the pocket on my weirdly routed guitar was 54 centimeters, and most guitar necks are 56 centimeters, and there's plenty that are 55 centimeters. There are very few with any headstock shape, doesn't matter. Did not matter which way I went, that had a 54 centimeter neck pocket. By the way, if your bridge is already in place, you need to buy the number of frets, and the length that works with your bridge or your intonation is going to be off. So if it says this bridge is set for a 21 fret neck that has a 54 inch neck length, that's what you're buying. But since I put the bridge in myself, I get to decide where the bridge is going to go, and that helps with the scale length that I get, right? So at that point, scale length is open because the bridge hasn't been set, which when we go into neck installing, I'll explain that to you completely. But if you have no bridge installed, you have more choices with neck. If you have the neck installed, if the bridge has been routed or installed, you have to buy the neck that works with that bridge. Again, my issue was not scale length, my issue was neck pocket, and I feel like a better craftsman could have just widened the neck pocket, but I also feel like if you do that wrong, you don't have a guitar anymore. You know, you don't want your neck to be coming out at a weird angle. I don't know how much give there is to that, so I figured I'd try to keep it as close to 54 centimeters as I could, and I did have to do a little bit of sanding, and I also ended up having to put a shim in it to keep it, to just kind of fill up that space. We will get into that when we do the neck episode, because that was also a crazy, crazy adventure. But don't worry, as you've seen with this guitar, it worked out. It plays pretty well. The neck I got was $26. I got it on eBay, and the first fret was too low, so it was super buzzy. I had to have the neck replaced, and I had to have the nut replaced, and so my $26 guitar neck ended up being a $126 guitar neck, and maybe I could have got a better deal, but I lived in the middle of nowhere at the time, so what are you gonna do? Decals! This is where it gets fun. This is where you get to put your logo on the headstock, whatever logo you want. My logo says Magnificent Contraption, because I feel the guitar is just that. It is a magnificent contraption, and I think people personalize it in amazing ways. I think if you, I've said this before, if you scroll through Instagram, you will see 100 different kinds of people expressing their very unique personalities through this one 6-string instrument. Nobody sounds the same, nobody looks the same. It's just a great tool to bring out people's individuality, and the decal is just one of those things that helps you do that. So one thing you need to know, the kind of decals you want are called water slide decals. Now, did you know that water slide decals come in clear, which means you'll put ink on it, and then when you slide it onto your guitar, all you'll see is the ink, and they also come with backings. Like they come, like I got them in white. And when you put it on your guitar, it stays white. And at that point, I was pretty deep into this game, and I didn't feel like ordering new ones, and there was some hinky reason about returning it, or maybe I just thought it would be okay. So I just moved forward with it, and it looked like garbage. It looked super terrible. So be it. Well, I went through a couple of different logos. I was going to go with an eyeball for a minute, but that looked weird. So Magnificent Contraption it is. I like the lettering, I just don't like the way it looks, but once I'd really locked that in, like that decal was there for about a year, I decided to just wood burn it in, which is really permanent. And if you make a mistake, you can't unmake the mistake. I love the way it looks exactly the way I want it to, but you are getting a tattoo on your guitar if you go that route, so just know that. Double guns. All right, I don't think I can give you everything in the world. I probably missed something. We already talked about the paint you had to buy in the last video, so if you want to finish your guitar, go back and watch that video. It covers it pretty well. But this should help you figure out your electronics, your hardware, your neck, all the stuff you need to make the guitar into the guitar. If you like this video, please like it. If you have comments, please leave them in the comment section. Please be gentle and civil. That would be greatly appreciated. Please subscribe. Please like. Please follow me on Instagram. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this. I certainly hope you got something out of it. My name is Spencer Dobson. This is Learning Curve. We'll see you no more guns. This is Learning Curve. We'll see you next time.